So this is our Roland Pro 4 XR640. It's one of the 3 printers that we have in the large format department. It is an eco-solvent printer. So most people think eco stands for like green and everything. It's economy. So don't get confused that it's a green printer. It's a standard printer. It's 7 colors. It has CMYK and then light magenta, light cyan, and light black. The cool thing about this is it'll go in, it'll print, and then if you want to, you can program a cut into it so it can go back and cut. So I'll show you what that means. We're going to do a little sheet cut on this right now. And then I'll show you what a vinyl cut is. A little side note, this ink is also really durable. So this stuff will stand up outdoors unlaminated for a few years. And it really depends. I mean, we're in Arizona, so it's a little bit different. Should be okay. So here is a vinyl cut. As you can see, I can peel out the little centers of all these letters. It will essentially just make a sticker that has complex cuts on it. And that's what this printer is really good for. Okay, so the way you load this printer up is pretty simple. You put the roll in the back, and there's 2 little pieces that slide together and just hold that roll in. But what actually tells the roll how big the roll is there's these little metal plaques down here, and it only cares about where the left and the right roller is. So it doesn't really matter where all these ones are. Those can be all grouped up in one little piece, or they can be spread out all the way across. As long as the one on the left and right falls underneath one of these little metal pieces, that's what tells the printer how big the roll is. So you can have a 60-inch roll in here, and if those pieces are side by side, I'll say the roll is only 3 inches. So this is our new Latex 570. It's pretty cool. It has 3-liter ink cartridges. So these inks will last a really long time before we have to buy a new cartridge and replace it. What we're gonna do right now, the printer's unloaded. We're gonna take out the media and then put in a new one and load it up. So down here, there's this handy little lever, and you can flick it, and it actually brings the whole loading system closer to you, and it makes it a lot easier to work with. So then you can just kind of wind up your media, grab, nothing right now, we'll just unload it for now, and then pull out the little slider, put your media off to the side, and we're going to grab a new paper. So when you're loading this paper, you want to load it so the flap is actually down. That way, when it feeds into the printer itself, the printer's going to be printing on the printing side of it. So you just hold your roll in place, slide the edge cap on, and once it's holding your media, you'll go back up to the control panel and just click load. The printer will know what's going on, and it'll prompt you with every step. So if you are new to this, it'll tell you everything. What you do want to make sure you do is always say assisted load and using edge holders, because that's just a good habit to put into. And we always open up this curing door. So once that's open, you kind of just wait for the printer to tell you what to do, and you can just keep going. So the paper comes out, goes straight into the printer, and you'll feed it until you can see it right here. And then let it auto feed a little bit. And then you can go ahead and close this door. It pushes back and clicks. And then just start following the prompts. So just click OK, because we already fed it through. The printer's going to check the substrate and tell you if there's any issues with it. It'll keep feeding it to kind of adjust its skew. And now we're going to tell the printer what we're loaded with. So this is one of our paper products. We already have it all profiled and everything. It is satin poster. So go ahead and select it and click continue. And now we can open up the window and slide on edge holders. Close the window and let the printer keep going. So while that printer is doing that, we can actually look at this. So when you're loading new media, this printer actually has 2 calibration charts it prints out. The first one is this chart. So it kind of has a little guide to read. The first bar is all about bleed. The second one is graininess and coalescence. And the third one is drying. So you'll print this chart out. Each line is a different ink density. So this one's 70% coverage, then 80, then 90, all the way up to 120. And it really depends on what mode you're calibrating. You can kind of custom calibrate up until a 20 pass mode if you wanted to for really special substrates. But in this case, you're looking for when this comes off the printer. If it's dry, you want to see what's the furthest down you can get before it stops drying in time. And you're looking for what the difference between a color is. So like at a certain point, does it look a lot less saturated and doesn't look as good? You want to go with the one that looks the best and still dries. So that's the first chart you print. And then you put all that data into the printer itself. Once you're done with that, the second chart you can have the printer print is actually a calibration chart. So this chart prints a lot of different colors, and the printer actually has an inline spectrophotometer that'll go back and measure all of these values individually, and it'll kind of set a baseline for printing. So that's a pretty cool feature of this printer, and that's definitely new to us. Now that the printer is loaded, we can go back to the home screen. And what we're also going to do is we're just going to tape this up on a take-up roll. So that same little lever that we used to flip it closer to us to make it easier to load, we're going to flick it, and now we're just going to go back. And this brings up the take-up system, so it's a lot easier for us to take it up. So we're just going to grab some tape. Great printer. It'll print banners, it'll print vinyl wraps for cars, it'll print wallpaper. So if you see that over there, that's actually a giant wallpaper that's printed in 7 panels, and we just installed it. So really roll width isn't that big of an issue because a lot of stuff that's printed really large like that gets printed in small little sections. Another cool thing it can do is we use it for a lot of standard posters. It has a really great color range, so it can hit really bright colors. And the cool thing about this printer, it actually has an optimizer in it. So it's a 6-color printer. It has CMYK, light magenta, and light cyan, but it has a 7th cartridge in there. It's called an optimizer. And what that optimizer does is it lets this printer start printing really quick in the morning. Instead of the old latexes, which you would print up, you'd start a print and it'd have to take 10-15 minutes for the printer to actually heat up. This one will start heating up in under a minute, and it'll actually start printing. So that optimizer is kind of like a bonding agent. It's charged differently than the ink, so it'll lay that down and the ink will get laid down on top of it. And it'll really create a nice, crisp, sharp image, and it actually adds a couple things. It'll make the prints more vibrant and scratch resistant. So leading to scratch resistance, that's really important for when printing pop-up banners. Pop-up banners, we don't laminate anymore, so because they're not laminated, they need to be really durable because they're going to be rolling in and out of a hardware. So the fact that they come off scratch resistance and cured off of this printer is a really big plus. So this is the third printer we have back here. It is our Fuji Acuity Advanced HS X2. So it's a pretty old model, but it's amazing to us because what we were doing before we had this was it sucked. It was horrible. We had to do yard signs that took hours, took many people to do yard signs. What this printer does is it actually takes sheets, you can put them on this table, and it'll print directly to it. And it'll print on anything that's up to 2 inches thick. So that's really cool. And it also, once the prints are done, they're cured. This printer has 2 UV lamps, right here, and the heads are right here. So the prints will spray ink and it'll get cured instantly from both sides. So it's a chemical reaction that's occurring. While the ink gets laid down, a UV light flashes over it, and that makes the ink cured. And it's scratch resistant, it's really cool. But the difference between this printer and a latex that we just talked about is the ink is actually textured. You can kind of feel it. It's not nearly as smooth, so this doesn't make for as great fine art prints. It doesn't make for really high-end art pieces unless you're doing it on some specialty material that you can't really achieve with the latex. So the daily routine for this printer every morning is we'll clean the heads by hand. So that's done over here in this little cleaning area. We'll open that up, and we'll clean the heads physically with a cleaning solution and a vacuum. The printer actually has its own vacuum in it. And then once that's all said and done, we head over to the command station, which is all the way over here. This station is actually what's meant for this flatbed. So over here, we can choose nozzle check and just print. And once you choose print, the printer will actually go through and it'll print a spray of all its colors. So what it's doing here while it's heating up is actually printing a gradation of each of its colors. So this printer is a 4-color printer. It's CMYK. It also has the option to print white ink. White ink is really difficult to work with because it needs to be agitated every day. White ink settles a lot faster than all the other colors, so it really doesn't last as long. So you really have to pay special attention to white. We don't particularly print white a lot. In a university setting, not very many people require it. But what it does is it prints that gradation of all the colors, and you're looking for these little tiny bars that are missing out of the colors. You're looking for a really smooth transition between the lights to the darks, and you're not wanting it to skip little sections. So what it's doing right now is the head's going to come across, and it's just going to go a few times until it finally lays that little pattern down. So as you can see, you hear that clicking sound. That clicking sound is the UV light that's flashing on and off, and it's curing everything as it comes down. That way you don't ever have anything that's uncured on here, because uncured ink in a big quantity like this will be really hard to work with. As you can see while it's doing that, you can see this large Sparky over here. This bed is a 5x10 or an 8x10 bed, and it's actually divided into two 4x8 sections. That lets us print two full 4-foot by 8-foot sheets. We can have one printing over there and one set up over here, and it'll move on over here, and we'll keep going vice versa until all the job is done. So in this case, it just printed this out. We already know we have an issue with the white head, but we're looking at this. We see a couple bars missing in black. We see one missing in cyan over here, another kind of thicker bar missing in cyan over here, and magenta and yellow are pretty good. Each print head, or each color, has 2 heads. That way, if one kind of isn't firing as high as it should be, you have another one to kind of back that up. But what you want to do is, if it ever has any issues that it's like really bad, you want to re-clean it and redo everything. That's kind of what this printer is used for. We print a lot of yard signs on this printer. This would probably be our yard sign and foam core poster printer. So we'll print hundreds of foam core posters at a time, hundreds of yard signs, and it's all done with this, and they last great outdoors, weather resistant, and they're great. So as you can see, I just moved the gantry. Essentially, when it's printing a rigid job, it's gonna have a sheet right here. There's a vacuum table all on this table that'll suck the sheet down, and this head with the whole gantry will move back and forth, and the head will keep coming across just like it was over here, except the gantry will move a little bit, it'll print some more, it'll move a little bit more, it'll keep printing, until by the end of it, you have an image that's like this Sparky over here, and the whole thing is done and smoothly printed. The head will move all the way to that side of the table and all the way back. So you can do a lot of cool different, it really helps with production.